the Greens have indicated they may back the government's controversial super tax through the Senate. Let's bring in Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, that indication after the Greens' significant losses in the lower house, and this is the first port of call that they might support that through. Now, how's that for, going to go down for, in terms of optics for Labor? Because the first thing they get through the House is something they couldn't last term, and they do it with the help of the Greens.
Well, I guess they got 94 seats to 44, so they don't care much about optics for a while, Laura, with good reason. But I think that they can argue we had a mandate for this. We took it to the election. It's going to be controversial. It's kind of a tax that will sneak up on people. That's the thing about this. So if you talk about people now with $3 million in their super fund getting an increased tax from 15 to 30%, including on unrealised gains, which is the controversial aspect of it. You could have invested in your super fund, can't take it out until you're in your 60s, and it's tough bickies. The Prime Minister before the election said this affects 1 in 100 people. Sure, but the Parliamentary Budget Office said in just a few years it'll be collecting $7 billion a year. So you can see why Treasury and the Treasurer will be for it, because it's not indexed. And we know that $3 million now, well, who knows, in 20 years with property going the way it goes, that could be effectively $300,000. Here's the Green Senator David Shoebridge yesterday on Sunday Agenda, giving the strongest indication yet the Greens could support this. Is that something you're open to supporting?
Well, we've never thought it's a great idea for people with multi-million-dollar superannuation balances to get a massive tax concession. Well, somebody working at McDonald's is paying. So
you'd like the tax
rates
to be higher, or are you saying the government's proposal might be something you're open to passing through?
Well, we're always open to proposals that make our tax system fairer. I mean, that'll ultimately be a discussion of our party room.
Well, there you have it. As you pointed out, Laura, they lost 3 of their 4 House of Representatives seats. Commentators were talking about a Labor-Greens coalition. That will never happen now, I'll be brave enough to say, ever, because it's going to be very hard for the Greens to win back their seats. What went wrong? I suggest they spent too much time on a foreign war and not enough on Australian concerns and their core sort of values of environment and the Democrats saying keeping the bastards honest. But when I put this to David Shoebridge yesterday, it really escalated into a bit of a fight with him attacking Sky News and News Corp. But he just continually refused, Laura, to acknowledge that they'd done anything wrong at all. Even a situation where I saw on the floor of the Senate, they wouldn't support a motion backed by both major parties to condemn the defacing of war memorials with pro-Palestinian slogans here in Canberra. Why wouldn't you oppose that? Do you think it's okay for war memorials to be defaced?
I genuinely don't think that was what was in the mind of millions of Australian voters. And you want to make the election about that, that's fine, but I think you're going to miss the point. This election was about millions of Australians rejecting far-right Trumpian politics. Now, we had a tough election, but our core vote held. We have the balance of power in the Senate.
Your leader wouldn't stand in front of the Australian flag. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I mean, I've seen plenty of photos of Adam in front of the Australian flag. And
there were press conferences where he wouldn't stand in front of the Australian flag.
And again, do you reckon that's what millions of Australians voted for? That might be what the sort of red at tooth and claw Sky News base gets excited about, but it turns out that doesn't excite. I
do feel this is a slight deflecting tactic by you in terms of accountability.
I know
you lost tough. House of Representatives seats.
I've said that. We were gutted by the loss of those 3 seats.
Well, there's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be that much introspection going on there. Look, I think at the start of that, he accused you of missing the point. Well, perhaps maybe take some of his own advice there, David Shoebridge. But the Greens contest and how the Greens have gone this election is a fascinating result and fascinating what the electorate does and doesn't put up with. And I think a lot of your questions went to that, Andrew. But I mean, we turn our attention to the Nationals this afternoon, yes, but also the Liberal leadership contest. What's your mail on that?
Well, I think the Nationals, it'll be about 14-6 to Littleproud. So, but I think out of that, as one Nationals MP put to me, Laura, there may be a vote backing Littleproud in, but the majority of the party will want to dump the net zero policy by 2050. So that's where we could end up. The Liberals, well, there's only a vote or two in it, so I'd be a mug to call it. I am going to try to call it anyway. I think Sussan Lee can probably just get over the line here. But when it's a vote or two in it, as you know, Laura, someone could change their mind in the morning, and we'll be live on air, Laura and I, taking you through this kind of fascinating close vote tomorrow. Consider this also. Angus Taylor said he's got Jacinta Price as a deputy on his ticket. The unintended consequence of that could be Angus Taylor narrowly squeaks over the line, but then Liberals who say, well, hang on, she just joined the Liberal Party. She shouldn't be deputy leader straight away. Don't vote for her. And then you have two blokes, potentially. Then you have Angus Taylor and Ted O'Brien. So that wouldn't be ideal either. Look, they are definitely in a mess, and I don't see that improving tomorrow because, as you know, Laura, with one or two votes difference, you know, you're never going to have unity. And as John Howard always said, disunity is death. Now, I had Dave Sharma on the program yesterday. He couldn't tell me how he's voting. Both sides are kind of tentatively counting him in their column. But he made another interesting comment. He said if anyone was offering jobs, he wouldn't vote for them and they should disqualify themselves. Well, there's been reports Sussan Lee is offering jobs. And I would have thought someone like Dave Sharma is pretty keen to get in the shadow cabinet. So it was an interesting comment. Let's have a listen to the senator yesterday. He could be the deciding vote. Have either Angus Taylor or Sussan Lee spoken to you about portfolios at this point?
No, and, you know, frankly, I would be appalled if they had. I'm not interested in people trading support.
So they haven't promised you a front bench spot?
No, and I haven't asked for one, and nor would I. And I think any prospective leadership candidate that was going around trading portfolios for support is taking the completely wrong approach to this.
Well, it's even been put to me that you've kind of, I don't want to use the word committed, but you've indicated interest in voting for both candidates. So which way do you think you're going to go, and is that a fair characterisation?
No, I think a fair characterisation is I've given every candidate who's put themselves forward for leadership a good audience and interrogated them on how they'd want to do things differently, how they would run the party, how they would consult with the backbench, how policy making would work, how they think we would appeal to this large swathe of voters that we've lost. Look, I think it's fair to say that our policy agenda we took to the election was underwhelming, and it's empirically true that it did not attract a lot of voters.
I mean, he should absolutely be in the shadow cabinet. He should be on the front bench of the shadow foreign minister. He's super talented. I mean, and for all the, you know, talk of the Liberal Party being about merit, merit-based selections and not dictated by factional deals and things like that by the Labor Party, well, maybe they should remind themselves of that. Andrew, before we get to some other issues, I just want to put to you the prospect that Tim Wilson puts his name in the ring tomorrow. Now, I'm not sure what the 9 newspapers were talking about today. Yes, there were quotes given by Tim Wilson. It was reported accurately, but I'm still not sure what that means. Is he running for the leadership or not? He certainly has some support from Jason Falinski. I think he'd have some support within the party. Whether he actually could even get close to that probably doesn't matter in many ways, because what we've seen in previous contests, Andrew, is if you have a third candidate like Tim Wilson, who's an unknown, it can split the vote, and therefore, you know, it could mean Angus Taylor's chances of getting up are all that more difficult. So could there be that kind of that offer beforehand from someone like Angus Taylor for Tim Wilson to be, I don't know, treasurer or a shadow portfolio? So, you know, they go in with a larger team that's more palatable.
Yeah, I don't think he'd have a serious prospect. I mean, I think about when Kevin Andrews ran for leadership and got 3 or 4 votes, I think. That's what I think, you know, I don't see it as serious. But if he puts it out there now, maybe down the track, I mean, goodness knows, who knows? But I think another interesting aspect to this, which I reported yesterday, and then Tony Abbott tweeted, is Tony Abbott has been involved in encouraging Jacinta Price to go to the Liberals. He's obviously backing the Taylor-Price ticket. And in terms of party members, is that a turn on or a turn off for them in terms of the way they go to vote? It's an interesting development in the whole thing. And, you know, you had Holly Hughes this morning saying Taylor'd been planning that for a while. I've heard that one as well. Taylor's angrily denied that. The suggestion being he figured Dutton was going to lose and he was going to have a go. But all that's kind of murky. Sussan Lee, hasn't been the best performer, I'm sure you've found, as I have, in interviews. It's going to be opposition leader. You've got to be good in interviews. So there's kind of hairs on both the opponents. What would have been great from a telegenic point of view, apart from anything else, would have been like an Andrew Hastie, Zoe McKenzie ticket. Andrew Hastie's only 42. He'll bide his time. I could see him running down the track though, Laura.
Yeah, I think so too. But whoever it is, they've got a big job ahead of them. What about Labor? I mean, this is the danger, is that after a big win, you're still going to upset people no matter what. And Ed Husic was certainly upset, calling Richard Marles a factional assassin yesterday. It wasn't by accident.
Well, if Ed Husic thinks Richard Marles is the only architect of his demise, I think he's dreaming. I mean, I don't think Richard Marles is going to do that without Anthony Albanese saying, that's cool, go and do it. So, and now he's got to meet Anthony Albanese this morning. He said, well, gee, wouldn't we like to be in that room for that meeting? Look, Ed Husic, he's kind of popular in Western Sydney. He's popular, obviously, with the pro-Palestinian community. Is he the most talented cabinet minister that I've ever seen lose their job? No, he is not. And I think there was a bit of a self-indulgent attitude by Ed yesterday, frankly. No one out there really cares that a guy in the New South Wales right, who's not a mainstream guy, lost his job. Jim Chalmers wasn't getting sacked. Penny Wong wasn't getting sacked. So I think if that's the worst thing that happens to Anthony Albanese, Husic and Dreyfus being upset. I mean, how are you supposed to refresh? And it could be argued if there was a New South Wales right spot up for grabs, Andrew Charlton should have been in there anyway instead of Husic. So disappointing for Ed Husic, quite the dummy spit from him. And he could cause trouble down the track, don't get me wrong. I mean, one of the reasons people talk about not dumping Ed Husic is because he's known as a firebrand and someone who will cause trouble. But also reported yesterday he was frequently arguing with Penny Wong in Cabinet. He was frequently arguing with Jim Chalmers. Well, they're two of the most important people and senior people in the government. So this is perhaps where you end up when you're a relatively junior cabinet minister and you do that. The funny thing about yesterday was we had Rebecca White on, former Tasmanian Labor leader, going to be an assistant minister, as I understand today. And she was saying Ed and Mark have gone quietly, and in the next breath, Ed was teeing off.
Now there's been a renewal for some of the members who will be joining the ministry in the Albanese government, and unfortunately that does come at the expense of both Ed and Mark, and I know that's been a challenge for them, but they're also team players, so we'll look forward to getting to work.
We've had sort of barefaced ambition and a Deputy Prime Minister wield a factional club to reshape the ministry. I think when people look at a Deputy Prime Minister, they expect to see a statesman, not a factional assassin.
All I've got to say about that, Laura, is that guy is there because of a faction. Used to be the hardest faction of all. Lost some of its power these days, but he's there because of a faction. Now, I expect a cabinet announcement later today, so we'll have the Nats party room for you. We'll have Anthony Albanese announcing the cabinet. I mean, he'll be promoting people who've been his allies. Tim Ayres, who's been on your show, Pat Conroy, you'd expect, Mark Butler perhaps. My tip for Attorney General, based pretty much guesswork, but I reckon Michelle Rowland. He'll want Murray Watt still in an attack dog role for him, but the top six staying the same. Right,
what about for Tanya Plibersek, do you think?
Social services? No, I mean, I speak in jest, but she and Albanese clearly haven't got on in recent years. She definitely won't be in environment. I think the one interesting question is, will Chris Bowen still be in energy? And I guess if the New South Wales right were going to dump someone or have someone dumped, Bowen was the alternative to Husic. He was kind of hidden during the campaign, but he could argue, well, I've put up this policy which you were able to fight Peter Dutton over nuclear with. But do they need a reset in that area? Albanese's always had the view that Chris has the technical knowledge in this area that others don't. One thing's for sure, though, I don't think Mark Butler will be wanting it back.
No, I don't think so either. Andrew, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it.